Did you know that Google personalizes many searches by city and Also Ask is the only tool to access live People Also Ask data at city level? Try for free at alsoasked.com.
I was going to say that SEO with Fat Joe is as peaceful as this, but then the birds are all having fights.
Tired of SEO guesswork? Quadra's AI agent goes deeper to uncover high-impact optimizations and completes hours of SEO in minutes. Get started now.
Does structured data markup influence EEAT? Well, long story short, no, it does not. Google uses the entity home as the source of information about an entity from an entity and then corroborates that information with the data they found on the web about that entity in a process they call reconciliation. A process in which the structured data markup found on the entity home of an entity gets taken into account as sort of the truth about that organization. But when your structured data overstates or misinforms the content on the page, then Google will ignore those statements whose content cannot be found on the page or the site itself. If you're looking for a proper example, I suggest you take a look at John Alderson's site. His site has structured data markup that represents the actual content on the page. At the same time, that structured data surpasses what Google asks us for. Jono does that because he knows his stuff and he just added that extra information in case any organization or party out there one day decides to consume such markup. But in reality, it's nothing more than nothing ventured, nothing gained. Even so, his structured data markup does facilitate Google in reconciling all the information it has found about Jono on the web. Thus, it allowing them to easily add that correct information to their knowledge graph and serve that information to people in bite-sized chunks. Good morning. I'm here to talk to you today about a story I wrote last year. A story containing 7,500 words, 7,500 triple statements, 650 named entities, and tons of food for thought. Although I'm not here today to talk to you how I got to those stats. Instead, I'm here to talk to you today about the myths and fairy tales surrounding markup and EEAT. But before I do, let me introduce myself to you first. My name is Jarno van Driel. I was born on the 22nd of January 1975 in the city of Rotterdam, the Netherlands, the same city I live in and work from. I came into this world with half a left hand and a rare case of dyslexia, which has my brain running through concepts faster than my language centers can keep up with. Which may sound cool. The annoying side is that it often causes me to lose track of what I'm saying. So if that happens here on stage today, apologies up front, please allow me a moment to reset my brain. Nevertheless, I feel comfortable in expressing myself in Dutch, English, and Portuguese. Although listening to me can be quite the experience, but you'll just have to live with that same as I do. I never went to school or university for anything I do professionally because I started working on the web just about as soon as it arrived in the Netherlands. So I've been at it for 27 years now. 17 years of which I've been trying to make sense of the application of the semantic web. And by doing so, I actually beat the search engines to it and became a source of inspiration in their trajectory of developing Schema.org. Now, the information I just shared with you is information you often will find in knowledge graphs. But it also contains some stuff you won't often hear people talk about on stage in an SEO event. I did so because I want to be transparent about who I am. I've never published much, I've never publicly spoken much, so because of that, you probably have little idea about who I am. And for that reason, I try to be transparent and give you an idea of who I am, how I got here, and who I represent. Because you probably don't know me that well, that should invoke a healthy dose of skepticism in this room. A type of skepticism that I try to battle by being transparent about who I am, thus hoping I make you feel comfortable enough to let me in and trust the things I have to say today. A type of an action that I do to make you feel comfortable and hopefully let me in. But it also is very important if you want other people to be able to assert your EEAT. Because, if you want others to be able to assert your EEAT, you need to be open about who you are, what your history is, who you're connected to, and who you represent. And if you don't do that, don't expect anybody to want to do business with you. It's that type of transparency we need in everyday life to be able to trust each other. Now, transparency is a weird thing. And if you look at this About page, for example, this is the type of page a lot of organizations out there publish on their sites because they're legally obligated to do so. Though the issue with these type of pages often is that they do not offer people the means to actually authenticate the validity of an organization. It's like they place all these corporate identifiers on their site and expect normal people to understand what to do with these identifiers, even though 9 out of 10 times they don't understand themselves. Luckily for ClickTip, they listened to some comments I made on social about this, and this led to them redesigning their entity homepage. Now, in case you might think, yeah, whatever Jarno looks great, but there's still nothing new under the sun, then you're absolutely right about that. But not everything under the sun needs to be spectacular. ClickTip simply focus on the information people are searching for on this type of page. As illustrated by information as you see right here, all pretty common, but what a lot of organizations forget is that information also needs to be interactable. You need to follow through. ClickTip did that. They added all kinds of links, additional information, and during the development of this page, we did a lot of A/B testing, and that A/B testing actually showed people were following those links, but after they followed them, they actually came back to the site. Interesting, because 9 out of 10 times, people are scared to let people link away from a website, and in this case, it was proven actually it gives people the trust to come back because you allowed them to really look at who you are. This resulted in ClickTip's case in a revenue growth of about 3%, and all by optimizing one single page, which really illustrates that being transparent about who you are and what you do really counts these days. And it's the same story over at the data consumer side of things. Google now mentions 9 different identifier properties in its guidelines because it wants to be as certain as possible about who you are, what it is you sell, what it is you provide, in an effort to prevent people, to prevent sending people to untrustworthy parties and that actually take away from you. With that said, it's now time to talk about the acronym at hand, starting with E for expertise. Now, expertise is a concept that plagued by tactics that make many search engineers out there cringe. Why? Because they're seeing tactics they don't understand people actually believe still works. It confuses them a lot. And what type of tactics? Specifically, meta-names keywords. An HTML element, anybody who's been in the business long enough has abused the heck out of, forcing Google to drop support for it. A history the new kids on the block maybe aren't aware about, because they're now repeating what we did decades ago, only this time through structured data markup. Simply said, same shit, different day, and don't let anybody tell you anything different. And then And of course, then there are those who insist you should turn all your keywords into entities, because that's how you help Google understand your content. Because obviously, we should trust the brains of people saying that instead of Google's natural language processing and entity extraction capabilities. Seemed like a smart move, trusting their brains, which have on average 95% accurate scoring compared to machine systems that reach an average right now of 98% accurate scoring. And the most notable being that people are limited at 95% because of the way our brains work and operate, while machines still keep on improving. So yeah, please do not trust those people who tell you everything needs to be an entity. It's simply not true. Brain farts coming from those that often tell us to use finger-licking properties like these. Properties no search engine ever documented support for, and supposedly can achieve great wonders in search even without adding that content to the page itself. So applause please, because those people must be some amazing SEO illusionists to be able to convince both people and machines their tricks are true. Next up, experience. A concept for which many believe Schema.org offers a very powerful mechanism through one single property. And that property has occupation. And if you combine that with the occupation clause, you can actually express people's current position. And if we also throw some Schema.org role classes into the mix, we can actually create an entire resume of somebody, of all the roles they've fulfilled throughout their lives. Pretty awesome, right? Nope. None of the search engines actually support markup for resumes. Google already has its job search portal. Microsoft already has LinkedIn. So together, those two companies already have all the information they need to be able to monetize it. So, alas, myth busted. And then there are the experiences businesses provide through their services. How these are experienced by their customers, and most notably how they are experienced when things don't go as planned. Now, many believe we can't get rich results in search because no search engine ever supported Schema.org service for any rich results. In late 2019, Google also published that they no longer support self-serving review markup for local business and organizations, leaving many to believe that the only way we nowadays can get review-rich results for organizations and services is through Google business profiles together with collecting Google or Google partner reviews. Reviews that then show up in the search results in local or business packs, but none of those reviews are about the services that have been provided. Those reviews are about the organization. But if you're looking at a very specific service to be done for you, you want to know how good a company is at that specific service. But unfortunately, you cannot express that through markup. However, what if I were to tell you there's actually a valid workaround for that conundrum? One that finds its root in Schema.org's origin back when the good relations vocabulary for e-commerce was integrated into Schema.org. Now, good relations has a product or service clause, which was split up into Schema.org product and Schema.org service on the request of the search engines in an attempt to keep things simple. The downside is that service clause got left around. Nobody uses it. But if you pay attention to the description of Schema.org product, you'll read in the first 5 words that it actually can be used like good relations clause to describe both products and services. You only need to read the first 5 words of a description. That's what we collectively fail to do as an industry. So interestingly enough, we can get rich results for services. And that means that information actually gets passed through to the search engines, and it actually gives them an impression on how good you are in the different services you provide. So yay for people who actually read descriptions. Next up, A for authoritativeness. And I bet you can't wait to find out which tactic will help your team to win the game. Here we go. You ready for it? And go. Alas, it's a sack. Schema.org has no vocabulary to allow you to express your authoritativeness. And the reason for that is extremely simple. People cannot be trusted to make such judgment calls about themselves. And that's why Google relies on the information it finds on the internet as a whole and aggregates that information so that they get a clear picture about who you are, as opposed to trusting your markup and believing in the emperor's new clothes. Although the harsh reality is, most will never achieve any authoritative status anyway. The bar for that lies so ridiculously high, most will never reach it, let alone get over it. But who cares about authoritativeness? There's actually something that works just as good. You only need to put in the energy and have the stamina to keep it up. And that is notability. The status of being worthy of being noticed by others. Being worthy. Oh, so important in this case. A status derived from the depth of public stories, the insights and experiences exchanged through these, and how they resonate within groups of people. One that can be achieved in many different ways, as I'm sure plenty of speakers will illustrate during this event. Though, given that this talk is about my story, I'll limit myself to explaining to you what I have done. From the day I first discovered semantic metadata in 2008, I've been active on a multitude of platforms and forums, helping people find their way. By doing so, I gained a ton of experience, while also building up my personal connections. So what did I do in my story? To illustrate, I actually have a certain level of authoritativeness. I linked to the people who I know, people I consider to be my peers, people who trust in me to lend me their ears. Sorry for the rhyme. Those people will confirm my status. That's why I link to them. It's not a link scheme, because I don't believe in that sort of stuff. It's all about personal experience and personal, how you're being perceived by other people. And the markup I wrote for that doesn't make a difference for search. I only created it because I wanted to build a complete knowledge graph and have that information in there for posterity, but it won't make a difference for search. Next up, T for trustworthiness. A concept that goes hand in hand with transparency, yet lacks the vocabulary to express it in. For exactly the same reason, we also lack the vocabulary to express authoritativeness. Like authoritativeness, trustworthiness can only be based on the experiences in collective. Let me say it differently. The only way trustworthiness can be established is through aggregating that information from the web. So what did I do to illustrate my own trustworthiness? I never published much, so I had very limited resources I could refer to, and because of that, I actually simply added some links to some Google search result pages that illustrate and provide an up-to-date and real-time overview of all the public contributions I have made over the years. A quick and dirty solution that does exactly what I needed to do. Give a good oversight and illustrate that even though I may not be very familiar, I can be trusted in the things I say. As for the markup, well, that's actually a joke aimed at some structured data engineers I know, because search results page markup is not supported by the search engines. And the links I added to my story link to search result pages which are not indexable and not allowed to be consumed by machines. So up yours, machines, people first. Talking about machines, talking about people, that brings me to the bonus I promised you in this talk. An E for effort. A topic that Google's previous search quality rater guidelines mentioned a whopping 99 times. But its current version now mentions that 120 times. I have no idea how fast that number will go up, but it's presumable that it will go up by quite a velocity in the age of zero-click searches. What I do know is that because we're now in that age, we need to have content that is ready to be consumed without us knowing its format of presentation upfront, nor knowing upfront which combination of information people are looking for. So that means we need to have very dynamic information that can be brought together in different formats. And there actually exists an industry for this. An industry where people work on something called structured content, a topic I think most of you probably never heard of before. And it's an industry that focuses on creating information that serves people in different ways. So you can have an article, you can have a small piece. In the end, everything is linked together, and depending on the information people search for, you can actually dynamically create that information. It's a new topic for a lot of you here, and that's why I suggest you actually start paying attention to those people in that industry. And a good way of doing that is by listening to the Content Strategy podcast by Larry Swanson of Alice Media, because there already for 7 or 8 years he's been having talks with people who specialize in structured content. Now, with that all said, it's time to close off my talk for today, and I'll be closing off by showing you the results of my efforts in answering the questions, does structured data markup influence EEAT? And that end result is a visual knowledge graph, probably the biggest knowledge graph ever created for a single creative work. And I call this graph an eye for data, intended for you to go on a journey into the unknown, but for that to happen, you will need to give the story a read. Thank you for listening.
Demand sphere. Limitless visual insights from the SERPs. Unlimited dashboards and users. Easy to use and easy to scale your growth to new levels.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.